Chapter 3. Salvathe's place was almost directly under the huge reactor shield for the Southern Hemisphere power grid switching station. The PGSS field was big enough that it sometimes created its own weather, and mostly that was rain. Day and night, steady, unrelieved, dreary as shit rain. The building was Eon Plus prefab, proof against the more or less constant downpour, a dull grey material that blended in against the sky the colour of melted lead. It was a good place to hide. Nobody came here unless they had a reason. Even the ground police avoided the rain when they could. Pinder, the holotech, splashed through puddles, ankle deep despite the drainage pump's attempt to clear the water. If Salvathe didn't have so much spare money he was willing to part with, Pinder would have avoided this scumhole. The building walls were thick with mould. Even the retardant paint couldn't stop it, and there were rumours that you could catch a mutant strain of flu here that would kill you before you could get to a medic, which wouldn't help anyhow, because even recombinant antivirals couldn't touch the stuff. Nice. The door slid open on creaky runners as Pinder walked up the incline to Salvathe's place. "You're late," came the ghostly voice from within. Pinder stepped inside, stripped off the osmotic rain film that kept him dry, dropped the torn bits of spiderweb thin plastic onto the floor. "Yeah, well, between my day job and this shit, it's lucky I can find time to sleep." "I care nothing for your sleep. I pay well." Pinder looked at Salvathe. He was ordinary enough. Medium height, hair slicked straight back in some kind of electrostatic hold, a little beard and moustache. He could have been 30 or 50. He had one of those faces that didn't seem to age much. He wore a plain black coverall and flex boots. Pinder wasn't sure what a holy man ought to look like, but Salvathe sure wasn't it. "There," Salvathe said, pointing. Pinder saw the cam on a table. "Damn, where'd you get that antique? It looks like an old ship's monitor. Where I got it is not important. Can you use it to tie us into the nets?" "Senor, I can tie you into the nets with a toaster and a couple of microwave cooker circuit boards. I am a very good technician." Salvathe said nothing, only stared at Pinder with those cold grey eyes of his. Pinder repressed a shudder, gave him the crawlies when he did that. "See, I can put you on the air, but visual and auditory only. No sublims, no subsonics, no olfactories. Be pretty tame compared to what your competition is throwing out at the GU. The great unwashed will hear the truth of my message without trickery, and they will see the image of the true Messiah. Such things will be enough. Behold." Salvathe touched a control on an old projector on the table next to him, and a hologram shimmered to life behind him. "Madre de Dios," Pinder said softly. The image was perhaps 3 meters from the tip of its pointed, spiky tail to the top of its banana-shaped and grotesque head. If it had eyes, they seemed recessed just behind twin rows of needle-tipped teeth. Pinder stepped to one side and saw what appeared to be thick external ribs jutting from the thing's back, and overall it looked as if some god playing a joke had created a man-like thing born of giant insects. The monster was a dull black or dark grey, and Pinder would not wish to meet such a thing under any circumstances. He didn't know what the Messiah was supposed to look like either, but he would bet all the iron in the asteroid belt that this wasn't it. "I couldn't put you on the air in 5 minutes, Pinder said, bending to pick up the antique camera, "along with your Messiah. It is your money. But I wonder that anyone will look upon this thing and think it might deliver them, senor. I myself would expect to see it in Hades. Do not blaspheme about that which you do not understand, technician." Pinder shrugged. He accessed the camera's computer, tied it into a shunt, and rigged a relay transmitter. He moved quickly to the power unit and console control, tapping stolen codes into an orbiting broadcast satellite. He held off on the last digit, then turned to Salvathe. "When I input the final number, you will have 3 minutes before the WCC locks its trace on our signal. 2 more minutes, and they will find the dish I hid in Madras. And 2 minutes after that, they will find this place. Best you hold your transmission to 5 minutes. I have an automatic cut-off 30 seconds after that. I will have to find another bounce dish if you wish to broadcast again." "Esto no importa," Salvathe said. Pinder shrugged. "Your money." Salvathe reached up, as if to stroke the dreadful image of the hologram floating in the air behind him. His fingers passed through the image. "Others will have heard the call. I must speak to them." Crazy as a shithouse rat, Pinder thought. But of this he did not speak aloud. "All right. In 4 seconds. 3, 2, 1. He input the final number. Salvathe smiled into the camera's lens. "Good day, fellow seekers. I have come to you with the great truth, the coming of the true Messiah." Pinder shook his head. He would sooner worship his dog than this hideous image, which had to be a computer simulation. Nothing could really look like that. The patient cafeteria was nearly empty, a dozen or so of the inmates shuffling their drug-calmed ways through the line with soft plastic trays. Billy moved in her own chemical fog, feeling tired but unable to rest. Sasha sat at a table next to the holoprojection chair, using a fork made of linear plastic to stir some ugly noodles around on her plate. The tableware was strong enough to lift the food, but would curl up like cardboard if you tried to stick somebody with it. Somebody like yourself. "Hey, Billy," Sasha said. "Check out Dee Dee. She's switching channels on the ejector every 3 seconds. Why, I think that girl is mentally disturbed." Sasha laughed. Billy knew Sasha's history. She'd pushed her father into a vat of jewellery cleaning acid when she was 9. She'd been here for 11 years, because every time they asked her whether she'd do it again, if she had the chance, she grinned and told them sure. Every day of the week, and twice on Sunday. Billy glanced at Dee Dee. The girl was gazing at the ejector as if hypnotized. The tiny holograms blinked as she changed the channels. With 400 or 500 choices, it would take even Dee Dee a while to see them all. "Come on, have a seat. Try some of this worm puke. It's real good." Billy sat, almost collapsing. "You on blues again?" Billy sighed. "Greens. Crap. What'd you do? Strangle a nurse?" "The dreams." Billy glanced at the tiny viewer in front of Dee Dee. A deep space ship flew across the void. Blink. A car chase on a multi-lane surface road. Blink. A documentary on feral elves. Blink. "Come on, Billy," Sasha said. "You only have what? A month left until your hearing?" "I won't skate this time either, Sash. They can't figure it out. They say my folks died in an explosion. I know better. I was there. Ease up, kid. The monitors." "Hey, fuck the monitors." Billy shoved her plate across the table, scattering the safety tableware and the noodles. The rubbery plate fell to the cushioned floor, bounced, but made hardly any sound. "They can send a ship 100 light years away to another system. They can make an android from amino soup and plastic, but they can't cure me of nightmares." Attendants appeared as if by magic, but Billy's rage couldn't stand any longer against the sedatives in her system. She slumped. Behind her, Dee Dee said quietly, "Hold channel." The image of a man with slicked back hair and a smallish beard shined in the air before her, and behind him was... "Join us, my friends." The man's voice spoke into the speaker implanted behind Dee Dee's mastoid bone. "Join the Church of the Immaculate Incubation. Receive the ultimate communion. Become one with the true Messiah. Dee Dee smiled as the attendants came and helped Billy to her feet. Billy didn't see the true Messiah as she left. Damn it, let go! Then somebody pressed a green patch to her carotid, and Billy stopped even that much of a struggle. Wilkes and the robot reached the security door leading into Milcom HQ, Intel 1. A scanning laser tapped a red dot against his eye, and by the time he had finished blinking, the door's comp had ID'd him and begun to roll open. The bot said, "Go on in, I'll wait here." Wilkes did as he was told. He felt the pressure of stares against him, knowing he was being watched by computers and probably live guards, that his every move was recorded. Fuck it. There was only one door in the corridor, so he couldn't miss it. It opened as he approached. He stepped into the office. Nothing but an oval table, big enough to seat a dozen people. 3 chairs. 2 of the chairs were occupied. In one was a full bird colonel, wearing interior regulations. No combat medals. A desk pilot. He'd be the MI officer in charge. There was an oxymoron. Military intelligence. The other man was in civilian garb, and he had the look. Wilkes would bet a month's pay this guy was a teabag. Terran Intelligency Agency. Any odds anybody wanted. "At ease, Marine," the colonel said. Wilkes wasn't aware that he'd been at attention. Old habits die hard. Wilkes noticed that the colonel, his name tag said Stevens, kept his hands behind his back, like maybe he was afraid to touch him. Not so the civilian. He extended one hand. "Corporal Wilkes." Wilkes kept his own hand down. Shake with one of these guys, and you might need finger grafts. The civilian nodded, withdrawing his offer of a handshake. "You saw the recording?" Stevens said. "I saw it." "What did you think?" "I thought the guardsmen were lucky they got blown to atoms when they did." The colonel and the civilian exchanged quick glances. "This is, Mr. Arona," Stevens said. "Yeah, right. And I'm King George II, Wilkes thought. "You ran into these things before, didn't you?" The one they called Arona said. "Yep." "Tell me about it." "What can I tell you that you don't already know? You've seen the recordings of my examination, haven't you?" "I want to hear it from you." "Maybe I don't want to tell it to you." Stevens glared at him. "Give the man the story, Marine. That's an order." Wilkes almost laughed. "Or what? You'll toss me in the brig? That's exactly where I'd rather be than here." But if they wanted him to talk, they could pry it out of him. The military had dope that they could use to make a crowbar sing opera. He shrugged. "All right. I was part of a unit sent to check on a colony on Rim. We'd lost contact with them. We found one survivor, a little girl named Billy. Everybody else had been slaughtered by some kind of alien. Same thing that got the guardsmen. One of them got onto the lander when it dusted off, killed the pilot, crashed it. There were 12 of us in the squad, stuck on the ground. I was the only one who got out. Me and the little girl. They shipped her off to live with relatives on Ferro after they wiped her memory. She was a good kid, considering all the shit she saw. We spent some time awake on the ship before we climbed into deep freezers. I liked her. She was tough. Later, I heard there was another nest of the thing somewhere, killed another colony. Supposedly a Marine and a couple of civilians got away from that one too. When I got back, the medics patched me up, then took my brain apart. Only thing was, all of a sudden nobody wanted to know from aliens eating colonists and laying eggs in them. It got buried. Top secret, total wipe like the kid. If I opened my mouth. That was more than a dozen years ago. That's it. End of story. "You've got a bad attitude, Wilkes," Stevens said. Arona smiled. "Colonel, do you suppose I might have a word with the corporal alone?" After a moment, Stevens nodded. "All right, I'll talk to you later." He left the room. Arona smiled. "Now we can talk freely." Wilkes laughed. "What? Do I have stupid tattooed on my forehead? If there isn't a battery of recording gear going full blast right now, I'll eat that fucking table. Probably the colonel is in the next room watching in full holographic surround. Give me a break, Arona, or whatever your name really is." "All right," Arona said. "We'll play it your way. Stop me if I get any of it wrong. After you managed to escape from Rim, you spent 6 months in quarantine to make sure you weren't infected with some kind of alien virus or bacteria. Nobody even tried to see you. No personal visits, nada. You wouldn't let them reconstruct your face. Women love scars," Wilkes said. "Makes them sympathetic." Arona continued. "When you were put back on active duty, you turned into a chem hound. 9 arrests and subsequent terms in the brig for stoned and disorderly. 3 for assault, 2 for damage to property, 1 for attempted homicide." "Guy had a big mouth," Wilkes offered. "I specialise in genetics, Corporal, but anybody who's ever taken a psych course can see you're on a one-way trip down the reaction tubes." "So? It's my life. What do you care?" "Before those 2 Coast Guard clowns blew themselves up, they downloaded the derelict's databanks. We have a trajectory of that old ship. We know where it came from before it came home to die." "Ask me if I care." "Oh, you should, Corporal. You're going there. Whatever your problems are, don't matter. I need a specimen of the thing the Coast Guard found. You're going to bring me one." "I won't volunteer for it." "Oh, but you will," Arona grinned. Wilkes blinked. Something unhappy roiled around in his belly, like a trapped beast wanting to get out. While he was still wondering if he were about to vomit whatever was left from his most recent meal, Arona hit him with another one. "You know that little girl you rescued? She's here, on Earth, in a mental center. They keep her sedated and run a lot of tests on her. She has these nightmares, you see. Apparently the brain wipe didn't completely take. She remembers things in her dreams. You could wind up in a place like that, if you don't do the right thing." Billy was here. He hadn't thought he'd ever see her again. He'd been curious about her more than once. She was the only person who'd seen those things the way he had, at least the only one he knew about. He stared at Arona. Then he nodded. If they wanted you, they would get you. He'd been in the Corps long enough to know that. He would go, or damn sure wish he had. There were worse things than dying. He took a deep breath. "Okay," he said. "I'll go." Arona smiled, and when he did, it reminded Wilkes of the aliens. Damn.